come to be warped by your fucking generation to mean something that is goddamn ridiculous. So call me a white man if you want.
I know, it's another buzzword.
With its original intent and its original meaning.
So many buzzwords today from both sides.
You know what I like watching these? You know what I like watching these days? I like watching the videos that shows Trump supporters beating liberals. It's becoming kind of like a thing.
Since when did Trump supporters start beating liberals?
Base stick man. Yeah, it's been happening recently. More and more videos show Trump supporters are beating the liberals.
Well, it's about time. Fucking defending themselves. What happened to JT, man? No, I think we lost JT.
Oh, someone said that they weren't going to come. Oh, there he is.
There he is.
I made it.
About time.
Sorry, guys.
It's all on you, Jess.
I just like threw this together in a minute, and my computer was low on battery.
All right, but where were we? We were listening. Angry, you were talking about the philosophy of Mgtow as a whole, if I'm not mistaken, and the economic situation in regards to women.
Yeah, I basically said that women have a $150,000 negative impact on the economy over the course of their lives, while men have a positive impact on the economy. Social welfare programs, that's something that you don't, Shades or Henry, that's something that you don't really, you would sit back and you say that you don't believe in welfare programs, but the problem goes much deeper than welfare programs. Women receive many social programs that men don't. I mean, research for women's health is significantly more than men's health. Spending for women's health care is significantly more than men's health. Women are not going to want to give up these things.
On the research issue, I would really have to. I'd have to have citations on that.
And what about the health care?
The health care, honestly, it's relative, man. When you look at the fact that, at least in my generation and the generations that came before, we were brought up, you don't go to a doctor unless you're on your last leg. You don't go to a doctor unless you absolutely need it. Even though the smarter thing to do would be to get off your ass and go to a doctor when you're ailing. A lot of men in my generation, I'm one of them. My generation, the ones that came before, and maybe a generation or two after, you don't go to a doctor unless you're so sick that you can't make it to work, and you don't make it. If you don't make it to work, you damn well better have a damn doctor.
Okay, well, here's the thing: you don't seem to understand how women operate, because women go to the doctor not when they're simply sick, when they just
dude. I said that. I didn't say I didn't understand that concept. I'm very fully aware of that, but I'm not saying I'm not going to sit here and say that that there's more spent on women's health care when they're taking advantage of the health care that they were paying for the most part up until Obamacare. I don't know. I'm saying that they're taking more advantage. If they fucking feeling ill, they go see a doctor. Men are a lot more stubborn about that.
Here's the funny thing that you're not honest about. Up until Obamacare, women actually paid more for healthcare than men because they use the healthcare system more than men. Under Obamacare, he actually changed it so men and women now pay the same amount. So men are actually subsidizing women's care under Obamacare.
Angry, you can't just say he's being dishonest about that. He even specified that like he didn't know, or that at least they were paying for what they were using. You're claiming he's being dishonest, or therefore being somehow misleading. Dishonest would claim intent, and I don't think you can put that on him.
Okay,
let's be, if we're gonna talk, let's be fair and say like.
Well, he was not aware, but now he is aware that under Obamacare, women use significantly more resources, but men are now subsidizing that care.
Where's your proof that they're using significantly more resources? I have an opinion.
Okay,
if you provide me with actual documentation, by all means.
I do believe he's correct on the higher cost of healthcare.
He may be, but Angry Mgtow has a habit of throwing shit out there and providing little to no citation.
Yeah, and you said some things earlier, and you had absolutely no citation.
And most of mine, as I explained to it, the tone that I take and the way that I express myself, it's based on my own experience. It's opinions based on my own experience. And I make that very clear from beginning to end. This is my feelings on the subject. This is my thoughts and my opinions. Now, and Jess has known me long enough that she'll tell you if I find that I'm in error. It may not change how I feel, but I'll at least go back and reassess it and say, you know what? There's opposition, or there's a good argument against the way I feel based on this evidence here. I still don't believe that it's correct, or I don't believe that it's right, but I can't argue the facts. So I always revise my opinion, or I revise the information that I have to work with, but it's not. I never come out and say this is fact unless I know it's fact, unless I have something that I know I can look and back it up and say this is fact. It's up until that point, it's my position is based entirely on my own experience and opinion, as is the largest majority of the rest of the world bases their opinion on their own experience, not necessarily on fact. Fact comes into it later, but their initial reaction to anything is based on their own experience.
I have a really quick question for Angry, and this is kind of goes in part with what I've been doing as far as researching different sectors of. I guess I kind of have to hesitate using the term manosphere because I realize that there's a difference between the majority usage of the term and the Mgtow usage of the term manosphere. But when I'm speaking about it, I'm referring to it in the way of segments of society or the internet wherein the topics are typically male dominated. You said earlier that you're speaking to the philosophy of Mgtow and I understand that it's a non-movement. It's not a something with a specific goal. It's more of just somewhat of a detachment. My concern was that when you go to speak about this is this is what Mgtow is and this is what the philosophy is. Again, I would only ask, and because I do want to understand it better, I would want to know where you're getting this the consensus position from, or where you're getting the confidence upon which to state this is what the philosophy is, when from every Mgtow individual I've spoken to thus far, the only consensus that I have as to what makes a Mgtow is the rejection of marriage. It has nothing to do with the philosophy of reversing or combating gynocentrism. It has nothing to do with any of that. And those can all be parts of an individual Mgtow's general life.
All I've said is that Mgtow is not having children, not getting married, and focusing on yourself and your happiness. That's what I've said from the beginning.
At the beginning of the stream, you brought in gynocentrism, and that Mgtow is kind of a battle against gynocentrism. I think that's where Jake.
Yeah, you did make other assertions about like the core philosophy of Mgtow, and you say, well, those are
because of gynocentrism.
Would you mind not interrupting me? I'm trying to be polite here. Like I'm trying to explain my position and ask you a question that's in full detail, so that you don't misunderstand it or speak on something and trip on something that I've made incomplete. I don't think I've been in. I think I've waited for you to speak. I don't think I've been impolite to you.
Go ahead.
All right, thank you. When you said earlier that those are radicals in the movement, and you speak, it does hearken to the no true feminist position, if you will. Well, they're radicals, or they're extremists in the movement, and that kind of thing. Like, I've yet to see any evidence for Mgtow having a concise position or a consensus position other than rejecting marriage, and in this case, you're saying rejecting children. This is the first time I've actually heard of rejection of having kids. And I don't understand where this perception of knowing the one true meaning of Mgtow is coming from. That's all. I'm just wondering where, like, if you're hearing this from other vocal members of the Mgtow sphere, sector of the world, whatever you want to call it. like throwing around the word community because it gets used too much. But if you're getting that impression from other individuals, I would just want to know where you're getting that consensus implication from.
Widely accepted among Mgtow, the widely accepted consensus of defining Mgtow is not getting married, not having children, focusing on yourself and your own happiness. If you go to sites such as Mgtow.com, you'll likely find the same consensus over on Mgtow.com. Okay?
Okay.
So that's typically it. Mgtow has changed over the years. So, for example, the original first wave of Mgtow was essentially about reclaiming one's masculinity. The second wave of Mgtow started around 2011, and between 2011 and now, and that has been defined literally by essentially not getting married, not having children, focusing on yourself and your own happiness. Those were the three characteristics of second wave Mgtow. We're currently entering third wave Mgtow, which is appearing to be gender segregation, although it's still developing. That's specifically what we have. I'm one of the older Mgtow. I've been in the community for about 7 years now, 8 years, and I've watched everything happen. Who established the Mgtow philosophy that I'm talking about was established by Barbarossa and Stardust. Those are the guys who helped push second wave Mgtow forward.
I have a question. And maybe it's because I don't understand the movement. You have, Angry, you've alluded to the fact that I don't have a very good understanding of a lot of things. I think you don't really give enough credit. If Mgtow is just a moving away from the participation in the institution known as marriage, if it is ultimately just moving away from the concept of having children, then and members of this ideology seem to want more and more men to espouse those ideas, then what the hell is going to happen to civilization if more men espouse these ideas and just don't have kids or don't propagate the species?
No, there's a couple of things. One, maybe women will maybe society will recognize that men are choosing not to have children because they find it not they see it as a negative rather than a positive these days, and it's too risky, and there might be some type of social change that will lead to more equality between men and women, or if that doesn't happen, then you may end up with a situation where the population will decline. At least the native population will decline. So that's essentially it. That's not our problem.
You see, that's the part I don't understand. Women are saying it's not their problem. Excuse me. The feminists, the hardcore feminists, are saying it's not their problem. It's men's problem.
Mm-hmm.
Men, the more extreme of the Mgtow movement, just like yourself right now, well, it's not men's problem. Well, then whose problem is it?
It's your problem. Okay, it's your problem to worry about. It's your problem. It's not my problem. My problem is myself as a man. My problem is making sure I have a roof over my head. My problem is making sure that I take care of myself. I'm a man going my own way. That doesn't mean I hate women. That doesn't mean that I have to carry them on my backs, and it doesn't mean that I have to focus on what's good for society. If society hasn't focused on what's good for me. All right? It's every man for himself. It sounds like a fucked up notion, but that's Mgtow. Men going their own way. Not going their own way together, going their own way, focusing on themselves.
Oh, I'm sorry, JT.
No worries. It was your question to kind of double down on, I guess, and clarify. But my thought is this. If evolution has taught us anything, it's the fact that the promulgation of the strongest genes carry forward. Yes, no?
That would be fair. That would be a fair assumption. up until maybe the last century or so, where
Yeah, where it wasn't like absolute, survival of the fittest. It was survival of everyone who could be subsidized by social programs. But to the point I would be making is that, do you not understand how it is antithetical to your own notions of your own motions, geez, the own societal or sociological shifts continuation, that you would reject children, at least? Like, would it not make more sense to perpetuate your own biological line into a world where these issues that you're confronting have been addressed? And to that end, would it not make more sense, like, would it not be more efficient to deal with the problem by engaging with it than to try and play a game of sociological chicken with it?
It sounds that way, doesn't it? It sounds like the MGTOWs are chickening out.
No. I wasn't saying chicken
that's
as a
not what
coward.
it means.
Have you ever heard of the term or the game playing chicken?
I've heard of it. I don't understand the concept of it.
Okay, so imagine you and your buddy are both on bicycles heading directly towards one another. All right, the last one to turn, or the guy who doesn't turn, wins. That's the whole thing of chicken. You basically charge headlong at one another, and you know what? The one who moves loses.
Yep.
It's a stupid game. I feel like Shade's played it before. I've been there.
A few times. It wasn't on a damn bicycle, though, I can tell you that.
Yeah, it normally gets a little more interesting as we grow up. We get bigger toys.
Yes.
But sociologically speaking, you're basically saying, I'm not going to move, so damn it, you'd better move, for the sake of both of us. For the sake of, when I say both of us, I mean, society and human civilization as a whole. When I think the better approach to dealing with these problems would be to actually engage with them. Otherwise, you're taking those people who feel the most passionately about it out of the fight. Like, I wouldn't pull my most passionate player. I wouldn't bench my the player I've got with the most heart in the last 2 minutes of the game. That makes no sense. You want people who are going to fight for a goal. You just want to get that energy and that devotion directed in some sort of a constructive way.
Mm-hmm.
So if you took all of the energy and all of the commitment that goes along with the majority of what I've seen, because it's a serious strength of will to take the position that so many Mgtow do. If you took that same effort and redirected it in such a way as to work towards changing the problems that individual Mgtows see as being inherent with the system, and doing so in a way that involves engaging with people, like, I just see that being a far more productive way of dealing with the problem and actually ending it for more than just yourself, having a larger impact, leaving a legacy greater than oneself.
Have you ever heard of a movie called The Red Pill?
Yes.
And did you notice the shit Cassie J has gone through?
I've heard of it. Yeah, I haven't seen the movie, but I'm aware of it. I haven't watched it yet. I do mean to.
Same.
Okay. The Red Pill, it basically looks at the lives of a lot of men's rights activists. Men's rights activists have been around since the 1970s, and they've been trying since the 1970s. And they are called hate groups, but they are actually classified as a terrorist group by the Southern Poverty Law Center. If they try to have a meeting, or if they try to hold a meeting, they often get kicked out of the venues because the feminists will call and say, let the people who own the locations know that you have a men's rights group holding a meeting there. Okay, so when you look at how the men's rights groups have been treated and how they continue to be treated and labeled by society and in the media, MGTOWs see this. They fail to make any change. You're basically saying that you want us to go and engage into this issue as well and to put our necks out there. On the other hand, our philosophy is that it's not worth it. We're taking a different path. Our way is to literally go our own way. And it may not sound as productive to you, but you have to understand, we're not fighting. We're going our own way. Now it does produce, we do end up with a lot of very angry men in Mgtow, who expunge radical beliefs because they have that anger, because they're frustrated, because they've had their life screwed up, because they wish they could get married one day, but they're, society sucks. So they're choosing to disengage and to instead focus on themselves, but they still have anger and resentment. We have a lot of those men. That's not a core philosophy, but they often bring their own beliefs as a result of that anger in. But we're not a movement dedicated to changing anything. And while I understand where you're coming from and what you're trying to say, wouldn't it be better for us to do that? That's not our philosophy, though. Our philosophy isn't one of change, pushing for change. It's one going our own way. We're pushing for change in our own lives. We're not pushing for social change anymore. And social change does end up happening as a result of what we do. That would be great, but that's not our main focus.
This is the part that I have a hard time understanding. I came from a generational. I come from a generation where, if you want change, you have to do something to affect that change. Doing nothing and walking away does nothing. People are going to look at that and I mean, you wonder why feminists have such a hold on society. You wonder why they're having such an impact and why the legal system and everything else caters so much to women. It's because of the response, at least in your generation. It comes down to men having the response that they're having, rather than standing up for what they believe to be right. They're choosing to go their own way and say, well, it's not, just like you told me, it's my problem, not yours. It's not any other man's problem except the ones who want to actually do something about it.
True.
And again, you want change to be made. You want other people to make the change for you.
No.
You don't want to make the change. Well, that's
correct.
This is what I am gathering. This is the information that I'm being presented with, rather than actually make a stance and say, you know what, shit's fucked up. Let's fix it. Let's make this a better place for men in general. Let's change the court systems. Let's change the way that custody is handled. Let's change the way divorce is handled. You know what? And marriage is really fucked up. So let's go in and change how the whole institution of marriage is handled. Considering that today it's more of a social contract than anything, let's change how all of that is affected. Let's make an effort to change it. Instead, you're saying, you know what? I don't like this. I don't like the way it is. I'm going to whine some more. I'm going to yell some, and then I'm just going to walk away. And that seems to be what all these men that are espousing MGTOW are doing. And yet you expect things to be changed. In your own words, it's my problem.
Well, I have a Nintendo Switch behind me, and after I get off the stream, I'm going to go play Zelda. And I can do that because I have the resources to do that, because I don't have a family. I don't have a blood-sucking woman taking my money. And there's a lot of benefits to living a single life. That's a part of what it means to be a MGTOW. There's a lot of benefits that come with it.
I was married for 7 years, give or take.
Yeah.
I still had my resources coming in. Yes, I devoted a lot of it to family. And yes, she was a waste of space and a waste of human flesh. My ex-wife was not a very good person. She is not a very good person. But my resources didn't 100%, all of them, go towards her. They didn't all go towards my son. They went to my family, then they went to entertainment for the family. And of course, I had my own things that I did with what I chose to spend. It wasn't a blood-sucking, energy-draining experience 100% of the time. It's not what it was supposed to be about anyway. No, my ex-wife wasn't a very good person, but I wasn't going to let her completely destroy me as a human being.
Yeah.
And rather than
for us, if you want to not associate with women, like, that's fine, that's your choice.
I'm not encouraging
We're just saying it's kind of a solution. It's not really a good solution, but
here's the thing. I get what you guys are saying. You're saying you don't like the solution that Mgtow presents, and what I'm saying is that Mgtow don't care. That's the solution that they've chosen. You're trying to argue with.
Okay, you're allowed to have that solution
MGTOW
for
isn't offering
yourself.
a solution. That's the thing.
We're just arguing why it's stupid. Like,
I'd say we're arguing why some of us don't agree and why some of us want more information.
Well, for me, I just don't understand the concept. And again, it's me. This is purely me. I do not understand, and I probably never will, why you expect change to take effect if you're doing nothing to actively seek the change.
We don't actually care if anything changes. That's what you don't seem to understand.
And I don't understand how you couldn't care.
so is it just because you're so angry at all of the women that you've had bad experiences with so far?
No, okay. So I used to be very, very angry. And like I said, those perspectives have changed. I am no longer looking at women from that perspective. But at the same time, I do still see women. I see society as being unjust towards men. And, I'm not going to go and blame every single woman for what's happening, but I do still see that society is very unjust for men. And I don't see any real social change happening. Women make up half of the vote. Okay, and you don't hear a lot of women literally saying they want this social change as well. All right, so I get where you're coming from, Jess, but it's not a matter of hatred. It's just a matter of men giving up.
Okay, so I would like to. I think I'm seeing kind of a misunderstanding across both lines here, and I want to see if I can try and identify that here, or at least flesh it out some better. Angry, when you say, okay, so you would identify things like the preponderance of decisions in court decided cases for child custody in favor of the mother as a flaw inherent with the system, yes?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you would see that as being a net negative outcome for society?
Mm-hmm.
I'm asking, I'm not trying to say, I'm just trying to.
It is a negative outcome for society. It's a negative outcome for men.
Okay. So we have these things, and I think we can all agree that these particular items are a net negative, whether just for men or whether for society as a whole. Now, here's where I think the disconnect is happening, because this is what I see when I look at certain individuals in the Mgtow field, and I look at some of your outlooks on things. I see an issue, right? And I think that's a problem. If it's problem enough to inspire me to realign how I live my life. So how I see marriage existing today has moved me to say, you know what, I'm not going to engage in that practice because I don't see it as being a benefit. But I then take the look at that and go, you know what? I would like to have kids. I would like to have an effect that goes on and have some sort of lasting legacy that I can impact upon the world. Mm-hmm. And sociologically speaking, all human beings, or at least the vast preponderance of human beings, hit a point in their life where they reevaluate that which they've done and that which will continue on because of their effects. Mm-hmm. Now, I think you said you're a millennial, and so I haven't reached this point in my life yet. You haven't reached that point in your life yet. This is something that does happen when you hit towards your 40s, 50s, and 60s, because this is the closer you get to the finite end of your existence, you start to consider these things. I look at it by saying this.
Okay.
I'm going to try to change things so that, let's say, even if I have to continue on in my current position based on the lack of a change, or if change happens in the marital or family court system, within my lifetime, I may not be within the time in my life where I can take advantage of that and enjoy that to its fullest. Uh-huh. I can at least say that moving forward, I've created a better world to be left behind, and I've eliminated a problem that negatively impacted my life. Even if I don't say I eliminated something that will benefit someone else, I can say I beat something that in its construction disadvantaged me, that stood in my way.
Right.
Right? When I look at a philosophy like yours, and what I think when Shades and Jess look at the kind of outlook that you have, they see it as saying, I see this thing that I really don't like existing and that has motivated me to act in a certain way. Like it's been in the existence or lack of existence of something has influenced me enough that I'm going to adjust my behavior because of it. And then saying, and on top of that, I'm not even going to confront it. I'm not going to try and beat that thing. I'm not going to try to challenge that. As an MRA, as somebody who is currently undergoing many of the things that have befallen other people who followed the similar footsteps or who have even come anywhere close to the men's rights section of the world, yeah, it sucks. I take a lot of flack.
Just so you're aware, JT, I just lost my son in the courts. I lost him for good, at least until he's 18.
Just give me a quick second. I'll be right back.
Yep.
So when I speak, I'm speaking with all of those things in mind.
Mm-hmm.
I really didn't mean to interrupt, but I was just trying to give you a basis of my own experience.
Not at all. No, I totally understand.
As
I'm
Angry hasn't gone through any of these things, which I don't envy. Excuse me. I wouldn't.
You wouldn't hope that on anybody.
Thank you. Yeah. I wouldn't want anyone to go through what I've had to go through. And there's others that have gone through far worse.
But you lack a certain sense of perspective when you haven't experienced those things.
Correct. And
I'm on the other end of that. I grew up very largely without my dad's influence in the house. Mainly because it wasn't even a court decided thing. It was just because the fact that my dad knew it would cost far too much to fight and try and win specific shared custody of me, and so he accepted a situation that wasn't beneficial for my growth overall, because it wasn't a tenable position to hold.
right.
And I look back on that, and to some extent, I regret him not taking those steps. But I also acknowledge the fact that there wasn't a fight, there wasn't a win to be gotten from that.
I've been fighting my ex-wife for the last 5 or 6 years.
Yeah.
And it finally, we were divorced. The divorce was final December of 2011. And I had to fight like hell. Her family has a lot of pull here. They're very well connected in this town. I fought like hell. I went through 3 judges. I fought like hell just to be able to get the ability to see my son. And I'm the one that was raising him. So for me to lose him completely because of a child support issue, I was always there for him as a father, but because of my circumstance, it made it difficult to pay the child support. To lose the ability to have a relationship with your kid because of money is one of the biggest tragedies, one of the biggest injustices that I can see. It's not a fiscal. I mean, I understand there is a fiscal responsibility there, but I would think that the moral responsibility would be much greater. And with all the fathers, the deadbeat fathers, and deadbeat mothers too, because my mother was a deadbeat mother. But so for anyone that thinks that I'm just going to down deadbeat fathers, my mother was a deadbeat mother. She never paid child support in 15 years that I lived with my grandmother, and she was supposed to, ordered by the courts. The legal system doesn't, the way it's set up doesn't benefit anyone. Granted, it benefits females typically far more than males. And I just went through that, but to try to affect no change on a system I disagree with is, it's a waste. For me, I'm researching right now ways that I can try. There's no MRA movement in this part of my world. West Texas, there's, as conservative as we are, there's nothing really here for men's rights. There's nothing to help men going through this kind of thing. To me, if I just went MGTOW and ignored the problem's not going to go away. It's only going to get worse because you've got those who are louder than you are. An example being, okay, I got your link there. It's a greater injustice, though, to acknowledge that there is a problem and then do nothing about it. And that's the part I don't understand about MGTOW. To me, it's just ignoring the problem and hoping it'll go away. And like I said, again, it's a different, I was brought up a little bit differently. My experiences in life are quite a bit different than a lot of others. And I'm just rambling. So I apologize. It's like 4 a.m. here now.
Same. Actually, almost 5 now. But yeah, since I think Angry's back, Angry, what was the point I had left off at before you'd stepped away there for a sec? I know I was going through the whole like why I didn't understand, or trying to identify basically where I thought the disconnect was through the different parties here. As an MRA thing. You mentioned in yours, yes, the men's rights movement has been around since the 70s. And people who engage in it take a whole lot of flack. Myself, I've been working on a men's, mental health and suicide prevention thing, and I've gotten a lot of shit from people who go, "Why don't you focus on, women's suicides and female mental health and that kind of thing?" And I get people who attack me outright, not just question why I don't focus on women's health and shit. But then I look at it and say. And I was looking at Mgtow.com there for a second. I saw references to Tesla, to the Wright brothers, to Newton. And I thought to myself, if everyone looked at Sir Isaac Newton and cast him aside with his, the whole gravity bit, if everyone, and he didn't push through that, and if Tesla, got all the criticism he did saying all your shit's impossible and didn't push through that, and if the Wright brothers were told that you'll never fly and they didn't push through that, then all this shit wouldn't have happened. So if I say, yeah, these people have said I can't do this and I shouldn't do this, so therefore I shouldn't, then what I want to have happen, or the problems that I perceive in the system, can't be addressed. So, like, I think that's where the lack of understanding is coming from across the lines here, is because one side sees it as, if you see a problem that's affecting your life, correct that problem, right? Whether or not people are going to shit on you is immaterial, because most people who shit on me for this don't have a clue who I am, right? I say grain of salt, right? But I know at the end of the day, if I change that I've changed something greater than myself. You go up Maslow's hierarchy of needs, at some point, man, you've got to hit self-actualization. You've got to hit that pursuit of something that is greater than yourself. It's intrinsic to all humanity. You've either got to strive to have a larger impact than your own finite existence, or that is going to haunt you. And so the only reason I really oppose, I guess I shouldn't say oppose, it's a little too harsh, but question and want to question that that line of reasoning within Mgtow is because I honestly believe that to allow the total disconnect setup will inevitably, it's like people who go trans-trender, they want to change things up because that's what they think at that time. They're going to cause a certain amount of harm that can't be undone. And if in the Mgtow case, because I'm so concerned about male suicides and men's mental health, I know that what it can be like to leave these things unaddressed and what the outcomes are when men don't address them and allow them to just be there in their lives and leave those issues unsettled. And they come to the point in their life where they say, okay, now that problem still exists and I can't overcome it, or I haven't beaten that challenge. And with no exaggeration, it literally kills them. And so That's a concern that I have as a technical member of the Mgtow community. Like, I get it, marriage sucks. Like, the contracts are bullshit. 79.8% or something like that of all child custody court cases in at least Ontario go to women, go to the mothers, with the next best being, you know, shared and other, and then men. I understand those problems exist, right? And I realize the crap that my dad went through because of that waiting in the system. And I know that if I leave that and I don't address something like that, because it you know, it's been waited enough to adjust my behavior and the way I look at the world. At some point in my life, I got to pay the piper and look at that and go, okay, you know, like, I didn't even touch this. Like, I let it happen.
Okay.
I just don't understand. That's what I think. I can't understand how you can take a position that lets that happen or continue to happen when you oppose it.
Here's the thing. Maybe you're a noble guy. Your way of addressing such an issue is, you know, trying to address it head on. Our way of addressing the issue is simply walking away from it and saying, well, there's a couple of things. Either you live or you go and you commit suicide. That's responding to your point. You know, we don't want guys to commit suicide, but, you know, we believe that by going your own way, it helps to reduce the chances that you will commit suicide, because a lot of the reasons why men end up committing suicide is because they end up losing their livelihood, they lose their families, they lose their resources, and a lot of that does lead to suicide. There are other issues as well. But again, we can't be there to take care of every man. Every man has to stand on their own 2 feet. The thing that you don't understand with Mgtow is it's not men going their own way together. It's men going their own way as individuals. If our paths intersect, they intersect. But we're not holding hands and walking off into the sunset together. We're going our own way as individuals. And, you know, when it comes down to saying, you know, this is a problem that we need to address in this generation, sure, there's a problem. I completely admit there's a problem in society. But, you know, you can call us as cowards, you can call us whatever you want to, but at the end of the day, it's our lives, it's our choice to decide how we want to go about things. You can say you disagree with us entirely for choosing not to go, you know, to fight alongside the MRA, or to not become our MRAs ourselves, and to not voice our anger. But we've basically said, a lot of us have said, well, we've seen what happens and we don't want to. We're not going to. We don't believe we can either win, or we don't even want to try. And we basically feel that, yeah, sure, we're selfish. You can call us selfish. We're definitely selfish. We're focusing on ourselves. We're not thinking about what's best for society. We're thinking about what's best for ourselves. You can call us anything you want, and you're probably not going to be wrong. We're selfish. That's absolutely correct. We're not denying any of this. We are just going our own way. You can disagree with us, but it doesn't change our perspective. This is the choice that we've made.
Right after we did. Oh, go ahead.
I only have the one question. So would I be right in saying that you lack self-confidence?
Lack self-confidence. It's not. I don't lack self-confidence. No.
I wasn't asking as an insult, and I understand why you might chuckle at it or try and brush that one off. But when you say to me that, yeah, we might see an issue, but when we see an issue that doesn't look like we can beat it, then we just go our own way. Well, to me, that says you don't have the confidence to beat that issue.
Like you said, you made an interesting point earlier that you may very well not beat the issue in your lifetime, but hey, you know, it may help people in the future generation. And you can say, at least I took on this issue and I dealt with it, so that now future generations won't have to. Again, we're not thinking like that. We want to enjoy our lives as much as possible. So, you know, call us cowards, but we're basically saying, yeah, the time you can give your entire life up to try to tackle that issue, and you can feel like a great, big, strong man by beat it if you actually win. But on our end, we're basically saying we're going to hedge our bets and not play that game. We're going to basically take our resources and do what we want. We're going to basically fuck hookers or fuck women in other countries, or not fuck any women at all, buy as many video games as we want, spend our money the way we choose to spend our money, and do what we want with our lives. And, you know, if you guys want to fight, you can fight, but we're not fighting. Call us cowards, call us unconfident. Doesn't make any difference to us.
If the issue is not really important to you, and every one of you wants to go your own way and do your own thing, and as you said, it is your life.
Mm-hmm.
then why the hell are y'all so loud about it?
Right.
There's a lot of men angry. There's a lot of men who come to Mgtow and, they take that red pill and they get here and they're so angry because they wanted a family, they wanted children, but then at the same time, they just don't see any hope of change. And they also look at female nature. They conclude that, women have a specific nature. And after they get over that anger, they basically just decide that, it's the best thing to do is just to go your own way, focus on yourself, not get married, don't have children. Again, it's the realization that a lot of people get stuck in what we call the red pill rage, where they get raging about what's all the things that are unfair in this world, and and how women are, and then they basically work past it and move on.
Would you agree that MGTOW is the feminist version, or is the male version of feminism?
I wouldn't agree with that.
I don't think it is. To be honest with you, I think that there's a lot of guys who are beginning to become really radical, and they can easily make it sound like it's the male version of feminism because of the way they're behaving. But the philosophy of Mgtow is not that. It's just that, remember that most philosophies or movements are always going to be often are defined by the most radical members of that latch on to these philosophies.
No, I think I've tried to be fair to both sides. The most radical and the normal followers. And usually when I address the issue, when I talk about it, I usually specify that it's the more extreme members, the more radical members of those ideologies. And maybe it's because I'm looking at it in very simplistic terms. But when you have your radical MGTOWs who espouse hatred for women, and you have your radical feminists espousing hatred for men, how is that different? Other than
isn't MGTOW supposed to be like they're completely cutting off, not completely, but mostly cutting off like being in relationships with women? And I think feminism doesn't usually have that aspect to it.
MGTOW is not about cutting off relationships with women. Unfortunately, there's the most radical of the deck. Again,
and you said you want to go your own way and not
going your own way. We call it men going our own way, but it doesn't mean we're going our own way from women. It means that we're going in the direction that we choose to go in our lives. We're not basically going the direction of society. It's like I said, original concept behind MGTOW was reclaiming your masculinity and actually looking for different ways to get along, to coexist with women. It was never a separatist movement. It was later on that some of these radical ideologies began to come into MGTOW, and it became commonplace. For example, feminism was once the so-called the push for social and economic equality to men. And now we have to be a feminist. You have to support the gender wage gap. You have to agree that patriarchy is real. You have to believe all of these different things to be a feminist. These are the things that feminists do. All these radical ideologies came with that so-called basic definition. So we know that what feminism is today versus what they defined it as is no longer that. I'm not going to say that it hasn't happened with MGTOW, that the original concept and design of MGTOW has not been invaded by a more radical sect. And I can't speak for that group. I can't be held accountable for them either. Every man can only be held accountable for themselves. I can understand what you're saying, and I'm not disagreeing with you, but I can't be held accountable for it.
I think it's something that you mentioned earlier with the red pill rage bit and what motivates it, in that a lot of men come to the movement, and again, I'll be paraphrasing here because I can't quote precisely, but you said a lot of men basically come to the movement who are extremely upset after having this realization in their life that the systems are unfair, or that the nature of the women they've interacted with is going to cause this negative impact upon their lives, and so they become very loud and very vocal upon coming into the world of MGTOW, as it were. Now, to that end, I think the best way to summarize that would be that they vent this red pill rage because the dreams that they had previously had are quashed. They're stepped on. They're destroyed, essentially. right? They have this dream that they think they're going to go on, they're going to get married, they're going to have kids, they're going to live happily ever after sort of thing, and that gets trampled on. Be it from female nature, be it from the courts incentivize and the government incentivizing certain courses of action, whatever it may be, that their dreams are taken apart. Would that be an accurate representation?
I think that I can't speak for every man, but I can say that I think it does represent a lot of people in the Mgtow movement.
All right. So in at least in reference to those individuals, that section of the Mgtow movement, would it not make better sense if you were somebody looking at that from an outside perspective, right? If we're to look at that and say these individuals have a dream that could be realized, right? And their two options are to either one, right? Are you a hockey fan at all by any chance?
No,
Okay, damn. Do you know who Wayne Gretzky was?
it was awesome.
Is. All right. Well, he has a quote that says, "You miss 100% of the shots you don't take."
I remember that quote.
Well, he's only wrong because of Martin Brodeur, but that's a long story. The part that's important is that aside from shots that deflect off of you, go off a bad pass, and wind up in your own net, you do miss 100% of the shots you don't take. And so the point I would try to make here is that I don't have a problem with the members of the Mgtow population who are already Mgtow. I zero issue as long as they're not like the outwardly hating ones who want to actually cause harm to others. That's, and I get it. Way hashtag not all.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say this. I would say that the objective should be to get to a point where dreams like of that sort are no longer crushed, because we want to talk about the nature of human beings. You talk about how, you'll say women's nature is to, seek out resources where they can, so on and so forth, take what they can, give as little back. Or whatever the precise viewpoint might be. But another fact about human nature is that when we have a dream and that dream is destroyed and we cannot get to it, that it causes psychological harm. It does impact our sense of self, and that in going forward, right, you might be happy now with, I'll say you are happy now with your having the money to spend on the video games you please, or however, which way you want to spend your money in the moment. But looking at a broader cross section of humanity, mankind does not benefit when dreams are crushed. It is better for it. Essentially what I'm saying is that from what we know of human psychology, it would be better for the Mgtow community to say, look, you're trying to adopt this certain way of life, right, based on your experiences, but long term the healthier thing for you to do would be to fight for it, so that at the very least, if you can't achieve it within your life, you will never have to doubt the fact that you tried. Like, would it not be healthier for men to say, like for Mgtow men to say, look, we get it, we get you're upset, but you don't really want to join the movement?
I don't believe that, honestly. I believe that's your definition is that they actually take, wouldn't it be better that they know they actually took the chance and they actually, made something happen? I understand where you're coming from, but from a Mgtow perspective, no, because our perspective is one of non-engagement. So I mean, I understand exactly what you're saying, but you have to understand that we just see things differently. You're saying logically, from a logical perspective, maybe it would, but we're not looking at it from your logical perspective. We're looking at it from our own perspective and our own philosophy. You can call our philosophy illogical if you want to, but it's still the philosophy that we choose to live by. You can say that it's a flawed philosophy if you want to, but it's still the philosophy that we choose to live by.
Any Mgtow who chooses to change their belief system over time, let's say by the time they hit their 40s or 50s or whatever, they decide to part with Mgtow and try to make it in society, and try to carry on in relationships. And if they find themselves in a bad way, because the court systems are not just to men, or they lose kids because the court system favors the women, then I can tell you right now, I will have absolutely no sympathy and no empathy for anyone in your generation that wants to whine about it.
I agree. I agree with you entirely, and I would feel the same way
because of your apathetical outlook when it comes to those issues.
Hey, we're on the same page. MGTOWs will say that any man who goes out there after learning of the things that they have in MGTOW and gets fucked over in the court system, they deserve it.
No man deserves that. That's the thing. No man deserves that kind of treatment.
If you received MGTOW knowledge and you had this information, you have a choice. You can go and do what you've done, and they can get fucked over.
The crap that you're pushing, I would not call knowledge. I would call it a piss poor attitude and a very, very lousy outlook on life in general.
Hey, you could say that,
dude. If I had the same outlook,
yeah,
that you're espousing, if I had the same outlook on life, dude, I would have put a bullet in my fucking head a long time ago. I'm still here because I chose to fight that shit out, and I hunted down my demons. I dealt with them, and I'm still here. And if I followed the same thought process that I've heard in some of your videos and that I've heard here, I would have put a bullet in my head a long time ago.
Yeah.
I really think that the concept is misguided. However well intentioned, it's misguided.
That's fine. We're not trying to debate it.
I'll never understand how anyone can whine so much and not actually try to make a change about the things you're whining about.
Yeah.
And that's ultimately what I hear. What I hear is the same thing I hear on the feminist side. I hear a bunch of whining and bitching and complaining. The difference is the reason that they're winning, the reason that the system is the way that it is because while y'all are off going your own way and ignoring the issue, their voice is being heard. And I think that there's so much talk about inequality this, inequality that. Men and women will never be equal. Men and women are two very different beings from the same species. We're very different. We have different emotional, mental, physical aspects. There's never going to be true equality between men and women as a whole. You can strive for overall equality, but you'll never be equal. The best you can hope for is a compromise between the two. And I swear to God, I hope that I am dead and gone before the millennials have a chance to really take over, because they're going to lead the world into a world of shit.
You do realize you're what, 38, 39?
I'm 40.
Yeah, you'll be here with us. You're not going anywhere.
I may end up fucking swallowing that bullet just on I do not want to be in a world of y'all's creation. No offense, dude.
I'm so happy that Trump won.
You seem like a nice enough guy, but yours is not a world that I envision wanting to live in.
You wouldn't want just all males, Henry.
Huh?
You wouldn't want a world where it's just penis and nothing else.
You know, it's not just about the penis issues. It's the trans trenders. The fucking everything has to be. Every little thing has to be a major issue. You know, whatever happened to the days when people had a little bit of common fucking sense And they said, okay, you know what? That's the way that that is. That's the way that that is.
Yeah,
Life is happy. Let's fucking drive on.
I completely agree.
You know, even the littlest fucking thing is made into a huge, huge deal. Everybody wants to whine. Everybody expects expects something to be given to them for nothing. And I look around, and then now, granted, I know I'm not in the grand scheme of things. I'm middle aged. I'm still young by a lot of the folks that I know by their perspective. But I look around and I wonder what the hell it is that they see. People have been on this earth for 60, 70, 80 years. And I look at what I see, you know, and this whole thing terrifies me. It disgusts me. It makes me sick, physically ill, to think that these are the hands that I'm leaving the world into when I leave from it. And it bothers me because my son is growing up into this world. And without with no longer any direct connection to a generation that does hold some value, not just to principle and to the things that we were taught growing up, but to human life as a whole. I hear Black Lives Matter and I want to fucking throw up. Black Lives Matter no more than any other. It's a human life. Who the fuck cares what color it comes from? We all bleed red when it's all said and done. If you don't believe that, go put a bullet in somebody's head. I promise you there's going to be a lot of red out there. I don't care what color they are. Not that I'm encouraging anyone to do that. I'm just saying, you know, we all fucking bleed the same color. If you don't, you've got a medical condition, you might want to go get that shit checked out. But so much focus in your generation has been placed on race, on creed, all the things that we fought so hard to protect under the Constitution. And in one generation, you're fucking wiping it out. Not you yourself, but you as a general whole. Everything that's been worked for.
The worst part is how smug some of the like liberal millennials are. Like, they were literally talking about how racist old people are, and they wish their grandparents were dead because Trump wouldn't have won. So there's racist old people. Like, they're so spoiled. Do they even take a minute to think of all the things they've been through? And maybe that their grandparents are voting for their kids' best interest because they aren't going to be around much longer to even experience it. So, like,
Jess, you and I've had this discussion, and I really think that Trump won not because he had a lot of support. There's probably 3 diehard Trump supporters and 3 or 4 diehard Clinton supporters in all of fucking America. Trump won because he wasn't Clinton. You know, I'm not a fan of either one, but I think that our country would have been in a lot worse shape with Hillary in charge.
mm-hmm.
And of course, we may end up with that anyway after the public gets.
That's the main thing I saw this election as, was like the voice of the conservative millennials, like me, which are very lower number than the rest of the liberal millennials.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just great to see them not get their way this time.
I don't understand how a whole generation, as a general whole, can make every little single problem in the world about them and them alone. And then whine when it doesn't go their way. And they whine until, just to shut people up, they get their way.
Yeah.
You know, if I had done that shit growing up, I would have ended up with a fist in my teeth. My dad would have taken care of that, and that shit would have stopped in a hurry. You know, or my grandmother would have busted my butt with a belt If I didn't get that cookie that I wanted, and I whined and whined and whined, do you think I'm gonna get that fucking cookie? Hell no. I'm gonna get my ass beat. You know, and then if that wasn't good enough and I still went after that cookie, guess what? My hand gets beaten too. You know, I just don't understand it. This is not the world that this isn't the world that anybody needs. And 80 million people, you said 80 million people, I think you said, angry on the millennials.
Yep.
80 million fucking people making everything about themselves the littlest shit, the stupidest shit, where no one's actually focusing on anything important, scares the piss out of me.
I hope not all of them are like that.
Well, I'm just making a general whole, because I've known a few millennials out there that aren't like that, yourself included, Jess, and Joe, and some of you other guys, and JT seems like a pretty nice guy. And like I said, I like you up to a point, Angry. I just can't espouse the same ideas, man. I don't understand it. It goes above and beyond my capability of understanding.
I agree. I think it's time to end the stream. It's like 5:15 a.m. right now.
Sorry for being up on the soapbox. I'm off of it now.
No, you're good. Thank you, everyone who joined. I don't know where GT went.
I'm right here. I just been quiet. That's all.
Okay, I didn't know if you were.
He was listening to an older man rant.
I just listen to everybody. So try and hear people say stuff, figure out what they're saying, and then try and figure out where we go from what's been said. That's all.
Does anyone else have anything else to say?
Sorry for forcing y'all to listen to that rant.
No, I'm just gonna say, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night to everybody. That's about it.
All right.
Yes, I'm full of references, Shadem. I'm full of references. Non-stop.
I love that, man. It's nice hearing that some people still.
Yeah, I don't watch any movies. I really need them.
But you know that was a movie
There's so
reference.
many good ones. No, I didn't. I didn't know until you just said it was.
She assumed.
Good morning, neighbor. And if I don't see you, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. Just look up the Truman Show. It's actually a really neat way to look at actually live streaming and social norms today. It's really freaky when you look at it.
Oh yeah.
The Truman Show. TRUMAN. Jim Carrey, Ed Harris. Really, really good.
I've seen bits and pieces of that. I've got to go back and watch the whole thing.